Orlean and Sally regards to the Truth Core, whoever and wherever you may be on the planet. I'm here today to propose to you 3 questions. It's really one question packed into 3 parts, and it goes like this. 1. Have you ever heard the expression, unconditional love? 2. Do you have a clear concept of that conception? And 3, do you attribute to yourself either the capacity or the intention, or both, for unconditional love? Now, to be honest, I don't know what I'm going to say to you about unconditional love. But to set up whatever I do say, I'm going to ask another question. Well, just asking for a friend, you know. Who am I to say anything about unconditional love? What qualifies me to tell you anything about it that you may not have already heard, or to describe something that you yourself innately have not already experienced through a deep personal insight, personal and transpersonal insight into the nature and dynamic of unconditional love? Who the fuck am I to even open my mouth about the subject? Who am I and what qualifies me to give or offer, propose any kind of comment, insight, any kind of advisory remark on the subject of unconditional love? 2 points I want you to register in the first place. 1, I have never in my life claimed to be a loving person. And 2, I made it clear in Not in His Image, in a chapter called A Unique Message of Love, that I stand radically opposed to the proposition of unconditional love as you find it in particular in Christianity. The Abrahamic religions are Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. They all take different views on this issue. There is no message of love in Judaism. There is, as far as I can see, no message of love in Islam. The prevailing theme of Judaism is supremacy and domination. Love cannot coexist with those imperatives. The leading proposition of Islam is submission. Love cannot coexist on those terms. So it is the unique privilege and presumption, and in my opinion, delusion of Christians, that they have some kind of superior moral stance on the issue of love. But I showed in that chapter that the command to love one another, which is quoted in the Christian scriptures, is completely ridiculous. You cannot be commanded to love anybody or anything. Anything that you have ever loved in your life, be it a dog, a tree, a place, a boat, a bracelet someone gave you, a great work of literature you encountered, whatever it is, you were never commanded to love that. The response of love came innately from you in a free and autonomous manner. So I have refuted that notion that the commandment to love one another is the supreme moral and spiritual teaching on the planet. The plain and brutal truth is, love cannot be commanded. Love cannot be a commandment. While I'm at it, I may as well trash the rest of the world religions or philosophies or whatever they're called. Buddhism doesn't know jack shit about love. The word love in Sanskrit is closely equated with the word desire, kama. And Buddhism, from its outset, in its perverted and corrupted form that has been accepted by the world today and is promoted by such people as the Dalai Lama, who is considered to be the embodiment of compassion, karuna or karuna, that's all crap. Fact is that Buddhism, from its outset, from its original premises, says that Krishna, meaning desire, which is cognate to kama, is the root of, all evil. Or they don't use the word evil, but they say it's the root of samsara, entrapment in the cycles of compulsive repetition of insane and dysfunctional behavior. So according to the Buddhist, Krishna kama is the root of that samsaric entrapment, and that's also total crap. So I just reject all of it. Excuse me. And what I come back to, well, what do I come back to? I come back to the authenticity of my own experience, which is the only standard of truth that I have. And it's the only standard of truth that you have as well. So if I can say anything about unconditional love, I'm saying it out of the authenticity of my own experience, and you make of it as you will. So what do I have to say? Well, I consider it a characteristic, you may know by now, of the human animal, based on the endowment that comes from our divine parents, Sophia and Thelete, that probity is central to human intelligence. Probity, meaning the faculty of proof. So it's all right to talk theoretically, to talk in grandiose terms, religious terms, in great propositions of idealism, of religion, to talk in terms of the compassion of the Dalai Lama, which, by the way, is not love. Love and compassion are entirely distinct. It's fine to talk all about that, and to me, that's all theoretical. I put all that aside. I have the probative faculty endowed by my divine parents, as you do, and I rely on that. I rely on what can be proven. Do you hear me? So what can be proven about unconditional love? Whether you have it, whether I have it, whether anyone has it. What is the ultimate standard of proof? Say that you have it, that you are capable of it. It's really impeccably and absolutely simple. The proof that you really do have the capacity for unconditional love comes with the certainty that you are under no obligation to express it. Reflect on that. Another way to say that is that there are two great three-word expressions in most languages, particularly in the English language. One of those expressions is, I love you. And the other expression, which is complementary and balances the first expression, is, I don't care. You can elaborate on that second expression in this way, if you like. What does it signify? What does it imply? It implies that if I am capable of loving unconditionally, truly, genuinely, without delusion, without presumption, then I don't care if anyone knows it or not. I don't care if anyone recognizes that I have that capacity. I don't care if I show it or not. It's completely indifferent to me if I show it or if I don't. It's the same experience. The core experience is not changed. My core experience of unconditional love is not changed, whether I show it or not. I don't have to show it to anyone. I am not obligated to prove it to anyone. Why not? Because the proof of it lies in something in myself. And that something, that mysterious, magical, potent ingredient is called self-love. Or let's say, you can call it that, for lack of a better term or any other term. But in fact, at the end of the day, it's a pretty damn good term. So, you see, I'm building a proposition here for you, right? With you. I'm constructing this proposition spontaneously as I'm speaking to you. I haven't prepared any of this. I don't have notes. What am I talking about? Something essential to my experience of life and myself. And in some way, in some deep, profound way, well, it's always been there. I haven't always had the capacity that I have now to describe it in this way, but it's always been there. That being so, the proposition so far raises the question, how come it's there? What am I implying? How do you know that you have self-love, which is the basis for unconditional love of others? How do you know you have it? I pointed out in that chapter of Not in His Image that the proposition, the command in Christian scriptures, which is the source of the narcissistic superiority complex of Christians, is the command to love one another, to love all other human animals unconditionally. Isn't that true? And I pointed out that that command is absurd and inapplicable because love cannot be commanded. So if the capacity for unconditional love of others is real, if it does actually exist, it has to be based on something that is also unconditional. That is your self-love. Now, the term self-love, unfortunately, is rather tainted, and it has the connotation of narcissism. I can assure you that genuine self-love has absolutely nothing to do with narcissism, which, by the way, is rampant, and it is a viral infection of the Piscean Age that began at the dawn of the Piscean Age, about 120 BCE. And one of the reasons why Christianity succeeded as a religion and a mass movement was because it appeased the narcissism of the masses, as it still does today. Self-love has nothing to do with narcissism. In fact, it is the antidote to narcissism. Narcissists have what Alice Miller called narcissistic deprivation. She used this term, Alice Miller. She was a child advocate and a important teacher about what happens to us in our infancy that basically renders us, I won't say incapable, but certainly damages and impedes our capacity to own the self-love that is within us. You see? So Alice Miller said there is an affliction called narcissistic deprivation. It's like a black hole in the self-perception of a human animal that can never be filled. And that condition is rampant in our time. To me, as someone who claims to have that innate and autonomous capacity of self-love, the narcissistic pampering and posing that you see everywhere in the world is vile. It's vomitacious. It makes me sick to look at it. I hate narcissism. I hate narcissistic behavior, but I know the cause of it. I know that it's due to a lack of connection with that innate capacity for self-love. I don't have much compassion for it, but I know what it's about. I see to the root of it. I see the character of that terrible, tragic deprivation. And how can I see that? How would I know that if I didn't have a position from which to see it that is invulnerable and impervious to the degradation of narcissism? Well, fine. So far, so good. Maybe. If you're still with me, you'll see there's a proposition developing here. The way that I'm speaking just goes in the direction of a proposition. My role as a teacher is not so different from the situation of a horny dude in a bar at closing time. I'm just here to proposition you to get a hit for the evening, if I can, you see? The role of the Gnostic teacher is to proposition you and to educate and not inculcate. Educate means to draw forth with what you innately have within you. Inculcate means to impose something upon you that you don't already know or think you know or think you don't know, or to impose something that is not consistent with the innate dynamics of your intelligence, you see. The Gnostic teacher talks to you in a way that conforms to your intelligence as it is designed to learn. No one else can talk to you in that way. No one who doesn't know how human intelligence is designed can talk to you in that way. That is the unique attribute and privilege of a Gnostic teacher, and I'm not the only one, although I might be at the head of the pack in certain respects, simply due to the way that destiny has dealt the cards, the way that Kali has dealt the cards, because Kali runs the casino that runs all the games of the human drama at once. So the proposition is developing between us now. And where does it go? Well, it appears to go to a question that could be stated like this. Is self-love an innate endowment of the human animal? Is it something that you are born with and have innately? Exactly as you have innately the other 7 components of your endowment, called the calibration of the anthropos. There are 7 components in the endowment given to you by your divine parents, plus an 8th factor, sattva, which coordinates and integrates all the other 7 functions. So that's a total of 8. But in addition to that, is there an innate function in the factory installation, as we say, of this capacity for self-love? Not unconditional love of others, but unconditional love of yourself. If you cannot experience and find and confirm and prove unconditional love for yourself, there is no basis for unconditional love or even conditional love for anyone else. Is that clear? Now, at this point in developing this proposition together, watch what I do with it. Watch where I take it now. First, I make a categorical assertion. Everyone knows the image of the human embryo. You may recall the picture of the embryo, the golden child, star child embryo, at the conclusion of A Space Odyssey, that film. The human embryo, suspended in the golden or amber amniotic fluid, typically assumes the embryonic position or the fetal position. So its body is curled around itself, head to feet. They don't exactly meet. And in between is the torso and the 2 hands held to the developing chest of the embryo. This is a well-known image. This is a universal archetype. Now picture the human embryo in the uterus in this position, and the hands are held up to the chest, to the heart. But the shape of the embryo is curved around another point, lower in the body, lower in the organism that is gestating in the womb of the mother. Where is that point? What is that point? In fact, it is possible to determine that exact point, the center of the coil of the human embryo. And a tool that you can use to do so is the ancient model of the 7 chakras. Now, may I warn you that that model is entirely obsolete. In fact, there are 13 chakras, but it stands as the infrastructure, even still, of the 13 chakra system. So the original 7 chakras present the stem of the 13 chakra system as it exists today, because it has mutated over the course of time. According to the most ancient received intel from the old yogic systems of India, there are 3 chakras below the heart. Picture again the human embryo gestating in the golden amniotic fluid of the mother. It holds its 2 hands together, clutches its 2 hands in the upper chest at the heart. But there are 3 centers below the heart. And what are they? There is the root center, Muladhara, or the root chakra at the base of the spine. Next, coming up, there is the Svadisthana. And next, after that, coming up again, is the Manipura, which corresponds to the solar plexus. more or less the location of the umbilicus, the belly button. So everyone knows you have a belly button, go down and feel it. And then you can feel the base of your spine, the coccyx. And located between those two is the chakra called the Svadisthana. That is the location of the gem of self-love. Now, I don't know if you have any familiarity with the chakra system. It's been terribly overworked and overhyped in the New Age. But you might find that surprising. Obviously, you would find it surprising because the next chakra in ascent after the Manipura in the solar plexus is, of course, the Anahata, which is the heart chakra. So you might, understandably, suspect that the gem of self-love, the jewel, is located in the Anahata, in the heart. But that is not the case. No, my friends, that is not at all the case. And due to that misunderstanding, or due to that erroneous assumption, there are a great many errors in the understanding of the nature of love, desire, and attraction. I am here today talking to you to correct those errors once and for all. I do so from my competence and my power, and also from my privilege to do so. And also, last but not least, the huge pleasure of being able to do so. So here it comes. What happens, what proceeds continually, perpetually in the Anahata, the heart chakra, is like the sea. It's like the oceans of the earth. There are tides that advance and tides that recede. Issuing from the heart chakra in the form of massive scarlet and purple waves of emanations are the tides of attraction that go out and the tides of attraction that come in. The heart chakra is not the center of human love. Not at all. I would have to take another occasion to tell you about the heart chakra and what's actually there. And were I to do so, I would talk directly about what is in my heart chakra. But for now, I want to emphasize that the heart chakra is the nodal point for the eruption of the waves of attraction due to love. Attractions due to love go out like the tide and withdraw like the tide from the Anahata. But the Anahata itself is not the seat of self-love. And were there not self-love, were you not installed with the jewel of self-love, then none of these eruptions would occur. Who doesn't know already what I'm talking about? How many times have you in your life confused an intense, vivid, palpitating, irresistible attraction to another human animal, be it a man or a woman, and mistaken it for love, and proceeded as if it was love? How many of you have love bombed somebody or been love bombed by them? I've done it dozens of times. Why does this happen? Happens because the eruption of those scarlet and magenta rippled waves of outgoing and incoming attraction from the heart chakra induce that amatory madness. But that is not love. It is simply the play of the outgoing and incoming waves of the attraction that love engenders. Love engenders attraction, but the attractions of love are not love. All true love is rooted in self-love. And where is self-love rooted? Where is the jewel of self-love installed in every human embryo? Well, to answer that question, may I, I'm asking your permission, bore you for a moment with my superior instruction, due to the fact that I've had the privilege to 75 years of life to devote a great many of those years to intense reading and study and experimentation. Now, I don't know where the exact quote can be found. It's either in the Chinese He Vajra Tantra or it is in the Guhyasamaha Tantra. Guhyasamaha means the Secret Vow. And these are esoteric Chinese Tibetan texts. And very few people have ever set eyes on these texts. And what I have found in these texts, one or the other, is a statement that says that the Svadisthana is the greatest jewel of Tantra. I found that statement, which I could quote for you the exact passage. Maybe if I can, I'll detail it in the description. The Svadhisthana between the root chakra, Muladhara, and the solar plexus, Manipura, is the supreme jewel of Tantra. What does that mean? What implications can you draw from there? What implications do I draw from there? From that assertion, which is recorded in one single line, one thread of a text from a Chinese Tibetan discourse on Tantra, which few people in the world have ever seen. What can I infer from that statement? The only reason why that statement means anything to me at all is because when I saw it, the first time I put my eyes on it, I knew that it was the truth due to it being the truth of my authentic self-awareness of the presence of the jewel of self-love in my installation as a human animal. And it's the same for you. It's the same truth for you. Truth is unity. To bring this little talk around to its conclusion, may I prevail upon your patience to cite another text. I have here in my lap a book titled The Serpent Power. And I acquired this in 1969 when I was living in Mendocino, California. And I had great interest in this book, which is dedicated to the subject of Kundalini Yoga, due to the fact that when I was about 16, let's say 8 years earlier, I had an experience of Kundalini, spontaneous. That was an experience of the lightning mode, not the meltdown mode. So the lightning mode of a Kundalini experience comes when you are seized with an overpowering cold electrical current that runs up your spine, paralyzes you, and it electrifies your entire body and goes into every minute circuit of your nervous system. So this happened to me, and in subsequent years, when it happened, it was incomprehensible, obviously. In subsequent years, life brought me the clues that led me to The Serpent Power by Sir John Woodroofe. And in that book, I learned about the 7 chakra system and what is called the Sat Chakra Nirupana, which is the mounting or ascent of the Kundalini through the 7 chakras to the crown. Now, in this book, you find illustrations according to the traditional yogic wisdom, yogic system of the 7 chakras. The knowledge that comes down to us from the yogis who experience these points of energy within the human body, if you want to call them that, is elaborate, meticulous, and precise. It contains iconographic intel, that is to say imagery, and it contains mantric intel. That is to say the precise knowledge of phonemes or sound syllables. I'm looking at page 365 of The Serpent Power with the illustration of the Svadisthana chakra. As I look at it, I invite you to this visualization. When Sophia and Thelete designed the human genome in the galactic core, they pictured exactly what they were doing. Now, perhaps you've seen these clips that promote AI, that hype AI, and the ability of AI to provide holographic illustrations that are then manipulated by the technician who controls those manipulations. So, for instance, I recall an image recently of a man standing in a room in an office, and he reaches out into the space in front of him, and a holographic image of the globe appears, of the earth, and then he spins it with his hands, with mudras, with hand gestures. He spins a globe and he pinches it and opens it up, and he goes into specific areas of the earth. This is all AI hype. This is all AI promotion intended to make you believe that that AI simulation is superior in some way to human imagination or even divine imagination. Well, it isn't. So picture our divine parents in the pleroma doing something similar. They're standing or leaning over a hologramic image of the human embryo, which they themselves have designed, and they are using their hands, although they're not anthropomorphic figures, they're using their hands to turn it and manipulate it and configure it into what it is today. And so they apply mudras, hand gestures, and mantras, sounds, in order to configure or calibrate the genome of the human species, of which every one of us is an emergent expression. They have before them, by the application of their pronoia, their intention, and their powers of visualization, which are divine, the image that I've suggested before of the human fetus in a fetal position, curled upon itself. And with their hand gestures and sounds, they confer into that organism the installation of self-love in the Svadisthana chakra. This chakra is a 3-dimensional hexagonal structure, but it is flattened. It's like a lozenge. It's a flattened structure consisting of hexagons, some of which are shorter, some of which are longer. 6-sided hexagons. Its color is exquisite emerald green. According to the traditional description in the Serpent Power, there is a hexagonal structure of 6 sides, and within that there is a structure of 8 sides, or octagonal. So there's a hexagonal lotus containing an 8-sided or 8-petaled lotus. The Svadisthana chakra is of the color of vermilion and has 6 petals. On its 6 petals are the 6 letters Ba, Bha, Ma, Ya, Ra, and La, with the bindu placed therein. They are of the color of lightning. In the pericarp of this lotus is the region of water in the form of an 8-petaled lotus with a half moon at its center. This region is white. Inside this latter is the Varuna Bija, Vam, seated on a makara. Makara is a Sanskrit word for crocodile. So in the illustration Woodroofe provides, you see this crocodile, you see the 2 lotuses, and you see the Sanskrit letter for Vam. So as your divine parents in the galactic core conjured up the human genome, they did it with various mantric syllables, words of power, formulas of power. And the formula of power they used to install the jewel of self-love is VAM. VAM. V-A-M. With the pronouncement of that mantra, they spontaneously created the jewel of self-love, which is your innate, sovereign, imperishable, and inviolable installation as a human animal. Now it so happens that you are born with that installation. Every human embryo is born with that installation. But due to the conditions of birth, heredity, environment, and so forth, and due also to the particularly difficult conditions of Kali Yuga, the jewel acquires flaws. A diamond can have flaws. A sapphire, an emerald, can have flaws. The flaws do not detract from the essential properties of brilliance of the jewel, but they are there nonetheless. That being the case, it deems you to acknowledge that you may have flaws in the jewel of self-love. But those flaws can be corrected. Those flaws can be eliminated. There is no condemnation, there's no judgment upon anyone for having flaws in the jewel of self-love. What you need to realize is that that jewel is primordially and innately without flaws. Is it possible to reach a state of self-awareness that is existentially provable? It's not something you wish for or imagine. It's not something you construct as a metaphysical projection, such as, yes, I am going to realize unconditional love based on the flawless jewel of self-love. No, it's something that you already have And only in knowing that you already have it flawlessly can you face the reality of the flaws that may have come to appear in that jewel. Do you see that? You and I, and everyone born into the human species, is a production of the imagination of these two divine beings. And you are born innately, deathlessly, with the divine innocence of this jewel. It is your own divine innocence that shows you your capacity for self-love, which is the only basis for unconditional or conditional love of anyone else. Is it possible to realize flawless perfection of self-love? Absolutely. It really is. It's not even something that you need to attain. It's something that you regain, that is always there for you to own, fundamentally, innately. And you could not be yourself or even have the conception that you are a self if you did not have that for the foundation. Flaws in the jewel of self-love can take many forms. In fact, those flaws really represent any way that you deviate from that absolute standard of self-love, any way that you might betray it or contradict it. But that is not a sin, that is not a crime. It's natural to do that due to the conditions of human experience in the world we live in today, at the end of Kali Yuga. Any kind of pettiness, petty egotism, any kind of superfluous and narcissistic concern about yourself is a flaw in that jewel. Any factor that inhibits you or distracts you from meeting another human animal in the naked reality of being human, of that unique case of being human, is a flaw in the jewel. But you are not at fault due to those flaws. Every flaw in the jewel is a place for you to look to see the underlying perfection of it all. The perfection of how you were conceived in the pleroma. The perfection of your divine innocence, which is inviolable, even though you appear to deviate from it. You can never really deviate from it. But not everyone is capable of reaching that innate divine perfection of innocence and self-love, as I'm describing it here. Not everyone. But those who do find each other ultimately, one by one at a time. Those who do share that innate recognition and support each other in that recognition. And no one else really matters anymore. Enough said. And I'll be seeing you in the beauty to come.